So the format of the show is going to be like this. Some days it'll just be me talking, and we'll keep it short, real short. And then some days I'll have like special guests. Like I might have someone who wrote a book, or I might have someone who also has a podcast, or I might have someone who started their own nonprofit, or I might have someone who is not interesting at all, but I'm going to make them interesting. You won't know what you're getting. It's a mixed bag because sometimes, shit happens and the person that you think is coming has to go to Hawaii to take care of her dad who has dementia. So it's going to be short. It's going to drop on Thursdays. And each day, if it's just me, I'm going to tell you some stories about my personal life, my family members. Probably they won't want me to, but I will anyway. So with that said, stand by. Bugs?
I am starving, Marvin.
Okay. Can you say hi to your dog? So my son was putting in an application for work, which I'm so excited, right? I'm sure he actually got the idea from his friends, but that's fine, whatever. And so he's putting in this stuff and he comes downstairs and he's like, Mom, I need this from you. Frances will become your best friend by the end of this because Frances lets her presence be known all the time. That is my Bernese Mountain Dog. I love this dog. I love that breed. No, it's not because it's trendy. It's just because I fell in love with this dog when we lived in San Francisco. And my neighbor, we lived in like a 700-foot square apartment, and my neighbor had two. And she would walk them all the time, and I just fucking loved them. And I was like, if I ever get a dog, I'm getting this dog because you know what? If they can live in an apartment in San Francisco, they can live anywhere. So now Frances lives in hot as balls, Richmond, Virginia, and she's awesome. Anyway, so my son says, hey, I need to know my social security number. Totally valid. Some 17-year-olds don't know that. So great. I'm like, okay, you're going to want to totally like memorize this number. It's going to be your life for the rest of your life. So he's like, okay. Well, then he comes back over and he's like, Mom, so we live, our state abbreviation is VI, right? I'm like, what? And he's like, it's VI, right? Like, the state VI. I go, and I start laughing. And he's like, why are you laughing at me? I'm like, because you just told everyone you live in the fucking Virgin Islands and Richmond, Virgin Islands. And he was like, well, wait. And I'm like, it's VA, dumbass. And he's like, oh my God, I knew it looked wrong. And I'm like, you're 17. You're about to be a person who can legally vote and you don't know the abbreviation of your state. Perfect. Then he's like rolling up the steps and over the shoulder, he's like, hey, Mom, we're Caucasian, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I am raising a dumbass. I'm like, dude, have you ever looked in the mirror? Like, there's nothing about you that would indicate, what are the other choices? Like, he's like, well, I mean, okay. All right. So now I'm sitting here going like, I have clearly failed as a parent, failed as a human being, apparently. So, speaking of failure, I have a major fear of failure. And so therefore, for the first part of my life, like I didn't try to do anything. I just like did the bare minimum and kind of blended in because I was like, oh, if I don't do well, I don't want to be embarrassed. And so that is actually no way to live. I've now figured that out like later in life. So now my fear of regret has superseded the fear of failure. So I'm trying this podcast because I've been thinking about it for like 3 or 4 years. I feel like I've got a ton of like ridiculous stuff to share. And I don't want people to feel like they're alone. COVID did a number on me big time. And I basically hated every single person in my house and my dog too. And then I started thinking, oh my God, what about those people that literally can't leave their apartment? They are so stuck. Like I know that feeling because I can't leave myself. But like if you couldn't get away from these people, like, oh my God, I was so sad for these people. So anyway, this podcast is only meant for humor. You might learn something on it, but it's probably not going to be useful in your everyday life. Maybe like a cocktail party, but not like taking a test or SATs or anything. So hopefully you'll laugh. Hopefully you'll feel like, oh my God, I really hate when that happens. Or you'll be like, oh my God, my life is so awesome because I have never had that happen, nor have I ever thought that, or nor has everyone ever said that to me. And then the other piece is, I think we're all just we're we're sad, we're mad, we're tired. We've lost a lot of time. We want it back. And I think if we all stop taking ourselves so seriously, because truly, like, life isn't that serious all the time, and it's how you look at it. So let's look at this from a fucking ridiculous standpoint, and the rest of it we'll talk about with our other friends that are serious. So I have a daughter who has a genetic disorder, and that offers so many great things, but also some cons to it, as every situation does. And one of the things that she doesn't understand is like sarcasm sometimes, and like personal space boundaries, and so this was during COVID, and we were outside talking to our neighbors, and it was like, I remember because it was Valentine's Day. It was like the first time we'd had like a good weather day where like you could actually go outside and you were like, oh my gosh, we're free. This is so great. And so my dog's outside, the neighbor's dog's outside. I'm talking with one girl neighbor, one guy neighbor, and there are a bunch of kids running around. They're all like 5 and under. And my friend, the neighbor, is holding her baby and she's doing the mom rock, just rock. We're out there for like 30 minutes, just shooting the shit. And this couple comes up and they have 2 dogs on their leash. I'm not a good judge of age, but I'm just going to think that they're like, have grown kids. I don't know. Anyway, my dog goes to greet them. My dog is all bark, no bite, but I can see where that would be really like intimidating and kind of scary. So I immediately like take off and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm like falling all over myself. And this lady just whips around and is like, you need to get your fucking dog on a leash. And I'm like, oh, what? Oh, hey, oh, okay. Well, I was just coming to I'm trying to backpedal here. And she's like, this happens every single time with this dog. I'm like, I've never seen you in my entire life. Oh my God, lady, I'm sorry. And so I'm trying to like get my dog to come back in. And this is all in front of these children and my daughter. So now my neighbor who's holding the baby, she's from like a small town in North Carolina. And she's like, oh, fuck no. She didn't back up for anything. And she's like, if you don't like this street, why don't you keep on walking and find another route? And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Well, meanwhile, my husband is, of course, like laid out on the couch watching golf. He has no idea what's going on. So I finally get the dog in and I was like, dude, shit's going down outside. And he listens to me about as much as my children do. So I have to walk back outside. And all I hear is my daughter go, well, you're mean. And the lady looks at her and goes, you're mean too. And I'm like, oh my God. Now my 16-year-old daughter is being shamed and insulted by a fucking Karen. Like, what? Seriously? Well, of course, now my neighbor with the baby's like super protective of my daughter. And she's like, you need to keep walking. You need to get out of here. And she's like, I'm calling animal control. She's like, you go ahead and do it. And that bitch did. She fucking called animal control and they came. Well, my neighbor puts her kids in the car. Now they're screaming and follows her until she can find her, or looks for her until she can find her. She rolls down the window and she's like, hey, I really feel like that went sour, like, I'm so sorry, but my kids are now screaming because now they think their 14-year-old poodle is going to be taken away from them. Okay, so this dog is like all bark, no bite. My dog, all bark, no bite, but big. Like, who the fuck's afraid of a poodle? Like, I mean, I guess if you're been bit by a poodle, maybe. Anyway, so she tries to say, that girl was so mean to me. And she's like, well, she actually has some special needs. And she was like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm like, okay, she's a fucking asshole. Now that lady's an asshole. And so my friend says, well, do you have children? And she's like, yes, I have 4. Then that's never happened to us. Never. And so my friend says, so you've never, ever had one of your dogs like let out of the house just by accident by one of your perfect children? That's never happened. And she's like, never. Well, at that point, animal control's at the other person's house. I don't know anything about what's going on. I'm just laughing about it in my head and thinking, like, talking my daughter down, like, sometimes people aren't the nicest, but, here's where I went wrong. And so, anyway, from that point on, I started looking for this woman. I still haven't found her, but we've decided that she is angry because of COVID and she's angry because she has 4 children, and she's angry because she's hungry, because she's like skin and bones hangry. But the moral of the story is, if you don't like the street you're walking on, pick another one, because sometimes shit happens and you can't control it. Fucking ridiculous. Here's the part in the show where I'm going to just talk about like some off the cuff thoughts, maybe my not so deep thoughts, because they're really not that deep. They're just like what's on my mind for this particular moment. So I have witnessed a lot of people being so impatient at the grocery store, and it is like not cool. Like these people are here, at least they're working and they're like trying. I mean, they probably hear all of us bitching all the time. So I'm trying really hard to be super patient. And I just think that if we could just spread patience and smiles, that would be great. You don't have to be a kiss ass. Just don't be an asshole. Like happy medium there. Okay. Number 2, if you suspect you have COVID, please don't go through the drive-through of the drugstore, because we are actually going to do the drive-through because it's faster than going into the actual store to try and get waited on there. So if you have COVID or you think you have COVID, can you just buy one off Amazon or like Instacart it and like maybe pick it up that way? Because sitting there for 10 or 15 minutes waiting for your COVID test while there are 17 cars behind you that just need, like one prescription doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing. You guys let me know. Lastly, I'm so confused right now. Like you go to like a coffee shop that's like not the S-Bucks and you order something. And so for me, like my order is always the same. It's like black coffee. That's all. And so then they turn the screen and they're like, you go ahead and fill out. And you have all these choices of like, I tip 20%, I tip 15%, I tip 10%, I tip, I think it's getting a little excessive, isn't it? Like they used to just have like the little jar and you'd put like your extra change in there, or maybe you'd put $1. But now I'm like, wait a minute, you want 20% for like flipping a screen around or like filling up a glass of water? Isn't that what you're getting paid for? Like that's your actual job, right? I don't know. It's very confusing to me because I thought tipping was like you tip for the service, which I guess that's a service, but waitresses don't make minimum wage or waiters. So I don't know. Can someone explain that to me? Because I don't want to be the asshole that doesn't tip, but then I'm going to be broke soon. So that's all. All right. So that's it for today. If you liked this episode or even kind of liked this episode, please, this was episode 1, so give me 2 more tries. Next week will be a little bit different. I'll give you a little insight into the pea brain that I have and how it works. But if you do like this a little bit, go ahead and like it. And then maybe if you're feeling like super generous, you could like subscribe to wherever you heard or saw this. And then if you were like me at the counter with the 20%, I'm going to click it for you because you did an outstanding job. Maybe you actually like write me a review and tell me what you like. Tell me what you want more of. Tell me what you don't like. It's okay. Just any info is helpful. So anyway, I hope you have a great week. We'll talk next week and be ready to hear some more ridiculous stuff. In the meantime, have a good one.
2, 1.